Hi, my name is Tony Muhammad. I'd like to welcome you to Lake Placid Soccer Center. I have with me a special guest here today. His name is Alf Galustian. He's the co-founder of Coerver Coaching International. He's the technical advisor to the English FA as well as the Japanese FA, and he's also the technical advisor to Arsenal Football Club as well as AC Milan. Alfred?
Thank you, Tony. Hi. Football is, or soccer is, the world's global game. It's the national game of basically every country in the world. And in the USA, where it's a fast-growing game, there's some real positives. For example, the women's national team are three-time champions of the world. They have icons like Christine Lilly and Julie Foudy. USA are 12th in FIFA's rankings, so the game is healthy in the USA. But like everywhere else in the US and for example in China, where I've also worked, the priority is youth development. In other words, developing players for the future. And in my opinion, and I've worked in many countries, and I'm going to speak about what I think for the USA, there are certain, if you like, priorities to follow. Youth development is a priority for every country, certainly every country that I've worked in. And in the USA, there's some fantastic interest and passion in the game. The only thing that may be missing is the passion to follow, you know, the professional league and clubs and the heroes that Europeans and South Americans, for example, have. But that's developing, and the league over here is developing. But here's my take on the US scene. The US is like every other country. Youth development is broken up into two parts. You have grassroots and you have elite, so-called elite development. Grassroots, that's recreational players who may, you know, play just for enjoyment. And Lake Placid Soccer Centre is just a great example of such a place where players enjoy and improve. Elite development is different. Elite players are actually players that may go into the professional league or play for their country at some level, or in the USA, because of your college system and the possibility of going on to education through sport, they'll go to college. So that's a definition, in my opinion. And the development of both players is kind of similar. I mean, I think you can break it down to players under 12 and players over 12. Under 12, there's a huge element of fun and enjoyment. And over 12, you have the physical and probably the more mental components coming in. A lot of people ask me, what are the priorities for developing young players? Well, okay, I think I was most influenced after the 8 years I worked with the French Federation, which in my opinion is the model of certainly elite youth development programs. But soccer's really, there's only four basic training components. You have the mental component, which is reactions, decision making, attitude. You have speed, which is a physical component. So you have the physical component, which includes stamina, speed. You have the tactical component, then you have the technical component. And just my personal opinion is that of all these, the most important is the technical component in youth development. In my personal opinion, the foundation of all development is technical. And on this foundation, and it's a strong foundation, you can build the physical, the tactical, and the mental. So once you establish this foundation in young players, then in my opinion, you can build those other ones on. Now, technical, I mean, I guess technical teaching is kind of a fancy word for skill teaching. In my opinion, the skill in soccer is what makes it difficult, not the tactics. You can learn how to play you know, the tactical way in small-sided games, 4v4, 5v5. Basically, it's use of space and relationships with other players. It's the skill part that's really difficult, and this needs a lot of work. I mean, it's like any technical part of any sport, golf, tennis. You need to just repeat things. And this technical component in soccer, in my opinion, is kind of misunderstood a little bit, especially vis-a-vis our program, which is called the Coerver Coaching Method. Skill in itself won't produce elite players, or won't produce good players, in my opinion, because it's what you do with the skill. In other words, effective use of skill. And a lot of people have a misconception about our program, which is about 30 years old now, that it's just to teach skills. Well, I'd like to correct that. It's not just to teach skills, it's to teach the effective use of skills. It's different. You have the skill, and then you have to cross the bridge and use that skill effectively in a game. And that is a true Coerver program today. It's evolved over 30 years, but that's what it is today. Coaches' education is absolutely critical, and at venues like Lake Placid Soccer Center and many of the other Coerver educational programs in the US, we don't only focus on player improvement. What we're trying to do is to improve coaches. And I think in a so-called, and I say this with great respect, developing nation like the USA in soccer, coaches' education is almost as important as player education. The better coaches that are in the USA, the better players will be produced, in my opinion. I saw that happen in France, where under Gerard Houllier, and I worked 8 years in this program, there was a big emphasis on improving youth coaches. That's coaches for players between 8 and 16 years old. And this emphasis and this focus on these youth coaches paid off. They won the World Cup in 1998. Now, I'm not saying just because of that, but it was a huge factor in that, in actually producing the young players. 7 of them actually came through the youth development programs that Gerard Houllier instituted and his predecessor before him. So, therefore, there is a correlation between the standard of youth coaches and the quality of player produced. And in the USA, of course, because you have such a big amount of grassroots players, you can't just emphasize winning all the time to players. What you're trying to do is produce or develop players who can actually get the acquired skills of the game, so then they can win later on, if that makes sense. It's not winning now, it's actually developing now and then possibly and hopefully getting results later on. So for me, because of my connections, my wife's American and my kids have spent a lot of time here, it's always great to come back. And unfortunately, I come back one month a year because of my commitments. But having said that, every time I come back and see places, facilities, the passion of the coaches, I think the US can go a long way and will win the World Cup one day.